The lie about saturated fat is really what destroyed rural America, and it's really what caused chronic illness in America. And he lied about it. The original research project was completely fraudulent. And then when the American Heart Association, who cares about people and doesn't want heart disease, goes out there and says, do not eat saturated fat, people listen. I mean, that's a power.
Same with our food pyramid. And
yeah. In 1980, for the first time ever, the value of our products, and I mean beef, lamb, pork, poultry, eggs, and dairy, permanently dropped below the cost of production to never recover again.
I'm Caitlin Sinclair, excited to have you all with us, and I have two amazing guests, Marcia and Bryan, who are joining us from my future home of Montana.
Thank you for having us.
Yes.
It's great to be here.
So I'd love to introduce you to our viewers and kind of get a little background on what brings you both to the MAHA Institute and just to the MAHA movement overall. How are you involved?
We got involved with Bobby last summer. Our son was working for Nicole Shanahan, and they were interviewing people all over the country, a lot of regenerative ag interviews, and and they were trying to get elected. And we had a conversation of, okay, that's 1% of the ag community. If you guys want to get elected, you need to talk to the 90% who are stuck in the current system. The current system might not be great, but that's where they're at. And they're not going to hear you unless you go talk to some cattle feeders, go talk to some ranchers in the western states. It's not where they don't get 50 inches of rain a year, And so anyhow, we ended up going down to Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and we did a 7-hour interview with Nicole, got to know her, and got more excited about what Bobby was doing. And then that video came out, and a friend of mine, a mutual friend of Secretary Kennedy and I from Miami, called me up one night. He saw that video, very conservative Cuban from Miami. And we both worked with President Trump on the last go-around. I was the president of the Montana Stockers when he was in there, so I met all of his secretaries and tried to get things done. And so he sees this video and calls me up one night and says, hey, Mr. Kennedy, what are you doing? And I thought he was really going to razz me, but he gave me his number because he knew him, and I sent him a text, and he sent me one right back, and we had a couple back and forths at 9:30 at night when we were in bed, and then 11:30 at night, Leland Learman calls me. Bobby says, get a hold of him, and we had an interview, and that's how we got involved. And prior to that, my goal had been to bring saturated fat to the national conversation. Because
Long overdue.
Long overdue, and it's all the symptoms are talked about in every facet. All the symptoms are talked about, but nobody talks about the source. How did we get to big ag and big food? I mean, it's easy for the little guys to shoot at the big ones and say, hey, it's your fault. But why do we have those big ones? How did we get there? If agriculture was so good and small family farms and ranches were so good, why did they quit?
Right.
And for us, that's kind of been a lifelong thing for us. Where did it go? What happened to it? And we ran across Nina Teicholz 4 years ago, listened to a lecture, and then listened to another one and another one and another one, and started putting pieces together that the lie about saturated fat is really what destroyed rural America, and it's really what caused chronic illness in America. And so we started putting those two things together, and for me it was just kind of a flashback, the last 40 years of all the small farms and ranches just disappearing, just going away, and asking why, and being involved in ag organizations, and let's sue the big four packers, let's go after the big guys. And I was always in the middle of the conversation, not on this side or on that side, just still asking questions. Where did they come from? Until I learned that saturated fat there's only two required nutrients for a body. One is protein and one is fat. Carbs are not required, and our body makes it. I didn't know that.
But it's interesting how much that conversation has just started to appear on the surface, right? And how much misinformation's out there. I yell at my parents every day to eat a stick of butter, and they want to send me to a mental institution. But I remember growing up,
great.
my parents
yeah.
were always so concerned with cholesterol and only eat half an avocado because you have to watch your fat. And they're good people. They're very intelligent. And my parents are well into their 50s and 60s now, but that misconception is still there because that information is not readily available. And the education has really gone wrong somehow. And I remember this 20 years ago when I was younger growing up. There was, I can't believe it's not butter sold in stores, and your average American was purchasing that thinking that was good for them. So how would you say the conversation shifted back then, or the information was so, like, what happened to the correct information?
Well, just take the recent event of COVID.
Yeah.
The lie was perpetrated, and the lie was just pounded into people. And anybody, just look at the last since COVID, anybody that disagreed with the narrative was buried. They were canceled. They were called quacks and kooks. Well, that's what Nina Teicholz did so well, is she went back and looked up all the information. The original research project was completely a fraudulent project, on purpose, paid for by Procter & Gamble. And it was the heart health hypothesis. Have you heard of Ansel Keys? So you know the story. They did this 7-country study. He delivers it to the American Heart Association. American Heart Association delivers it to the world to avoid saturated fat. Except the only problem, there was information, the exact same data available for 22 countries, and he lied about it. And then when the American Heart Association, who cares about people and doesn't want heart disease, goes out there and says, do not eat saturated fat, people listen. I mean, that's a
Same with our food pyramid and sugary cereals and all of that, of course.
And then the USDA gets involved in 1980. Comes up with the first food pyramid. American Heart Association has been running strong for 19 years. Saturated fat is bad, bad, bad. And heart disease keeps going up. And so whatever they say is bad and people are afraid of dying, they listen. And so USDA gets involved, says, puts their, just like that. And so you go back to, it's been 65 years of that lie. And people, it's just in our brain, it's in our subconscious, it's bad, it's bad.
So what does every American need to know out there in very simple terms as far as our fat, what we should be consuming? What do you think our viewers should know?
There is no limit on saturated fat. None.
And what is a saturated fat?
So saturated fat, so yeah, and I wanted to tie that together really quick with rural America. In 1980, for the first time ever, the value of our products, and I mean small family farms and ranches, the value of beef, lamb, pork, poultry, eggs, and dairy permanently dropped below the cost of production to never recover again. So fast forward to today, and the conversation of why do we have all these big ones? Well, because the little ones couldn't afford to stay in business. And so when I say to answer your question, what should we be eating? I mean, you should be eating real cheese, not American cheese. That's such an embarrassment for our country. Velveeta and American cheese.
No Kraft cheese license?
No Kraft. I mean, that's Kraft cheese and margarine are both plastics. That's all they are. And so eat real cheese. When you go to buy your cheese now, do not buy if you buy shredded cheese, and we just learned this a few years ago, they're putting carbohydrates and stuffers and fillers in them to cheapen them up. Well, you're not going to lose any weight on that.
Make them last forever.
Yeah, make them last forever. So cheese, cream, heavy cream. I mean, not oat milk and what's the other big one? Almond milk. Those things.
Oh, they make milk
good.
From anything these days.
Yeah. Any of those things.
Yeah.
Meat. Give up the skinless white-breasted chicken. Get the skin on there. I mean, that's where your cholesterol is. That's where your fat is. Our brain is 95% cholesterol. If we don't eat it, it goes haywire.
So when something says, I find it funny at the grocery store when things say no fat, zero sugar. Well, what are you putting in there to fill the fat and the sugar content? What's actually in there? Because it's chemicals. That's the truth.
Yeah.
So we actually want the fat. We want to eat the fat. We want to consume the fat. And ever since the conversation has shifted, even in this recent movement that's exploded, I still think there's more of a focus and people are less scared of carbohydrates now, but they're still scared of the fat.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
It's been a long narrative. And I think as Americans, yeah, we are taught to respect your experts. And so we do. And that's the narrative that's been out there. And when you go to the doctor and the doctor says you need to stop eating meat and you've learned that in your education, it's a lot for people in their head to overcome and go, no, I'm learning a new thing here. I'm going to go home and I'm going to eat my butter and my meat. So besides being addicted to all the chemicals, like you said, and the preservatives and the sugars, the refined sugars, and all the carbohydrates, it's a lot. It just takes a little bit of discipline.
What about the education aspect of this? What is the easiest, most efficient way to educate the mass public about a topic like this?
Well, I think the first thing that has to happen is you have to remove the negative language of saturated fat from the USDA, because we're not going to...
No easy task.
No, but we're not going to be able to educate people that it's healthy if on their own books it's unhealthy. We're working on our own cooking oil, our own beef tallow. So we send in our first label and it says a healthy choice to cook in. USDA sends it back. Supposed to be protecting small farms and ranches, sends it back to us and said, no, you cannot say that beef tallow is healthy. Saturated fat is unhealthy. So I think that's where we start, and we need to expose it. I mean, we have an opportunity with Brooke Rollins, and I think we have that opportunity through Secretary Kennedy, through Nina Teicholz, that data, that real data exists, and I think that's where we start to get the message out there. And it's going to take a bold, Secretary Kennedy is going to have to just come out and say it, Secretary Rollins is going to come out and say it, or President Trump's going to have to come out and say it to get people to listen and say, what? Ask that question, go, what did he just say? It's going to have to be that shocking because it's been entrenched for so long.
It's a work in progress, but it's baby steps, and it's so incredible to be in rooms with people that are well aware that we have this mission ahead of us and we have the work laid out for us. But
It is pretty exciting.
to have that energy and that fight and that grit in all of us that we want to take on this challenge. And I think that's what's so incredible about this movement. It's people from all walks of life, from all over the country, that are coming together on one common cause, which is making Americans healthy again.
Yeah.
And who doesn't want that? I'd love to know, what does the term MAHA mean to each of you?
I would say MAHA to me means Kennedy, Bobby, who had such an impact on us, just reading his book and the American values of, oh my gosh, this guy just speaks our language. He had such an incredible love for animals. Growing up, his story is so entertaining. It's like, this is us, this is our story. And that's when we got into listening to him and listening to all of his podcasts and all of his speaking and everything he spoke. It was like he explained why he believed what he believed. We've never watched a leader just be so articulate and so honest and so real. And if I've made a wrong error here, I'll change my mind. And we watched him through the campaign change his mind, going, sure, I've been educated a little bit here. And he is the one person I think I have ever known in my lifetime that is such an incredible leader. And it's like, I think I could get in the trench and die with this guy because of who he is. And now he's in the trenches big time, and we're all watching him get attacked from every direction and hoping that
But he's steadfast.
He's our man, and we're sticking with him. And that has been the hope that is in so many of us.
Yeah.
There is a real leader out there that we just really...
I think that's true.
believe in. So
MAHA stands for hope.
for me, that's kind of what it is.
Hope and open-mindedness and authenticity. And what would you say, Bryan?
I'm supposed to add to that?
Tough act to follow.
Yeah. Same thing. First politician I've ever listened to. Again, he explains his position, and he wasn't counting votes. And that's pretty hard because, you know, as an industry, we have come back to the USDA. We have come to our congressmen and our senators for decades. And unless you have all 5 or all 6 major ag organizations behind them, they're not going to take a chance and take an issue like this and march forward.
Yeah.
And he is the first that didn't care what the losses were. This has to happen. And people want it. Anybody can get behind that and believe in it. It was like, all right, we have an opportunity for the first time to explain saturated fat. And he asked me last summer, please educate me on saturated fat so I can get into my talking points. I have sent all that information to dozens and dozens of people in the last 20 years. Nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody believes in it. And and then to carry that message, he's done more for our industry. And I mean our industry. We're not paid spokesmen for the hog industry or the chicken industry or the dairy industry. We all produce saturated fat. We're not even paid spokesmen for the beef industry. But our own beef council is not allowed to mention saturated fat. And we pay them to promote that. And so that's what MAHA means to me is, wow, there is a vehicle, there's gas in the vehicle, and all we got to do is get in and contribute. That's all we get to do. And
Well, we need everyone on board. So we need
yeah.
some mighty big pickup trucks, so that analogy, but it truly is an awakening, and it's, again, incredible to see and to hear from so many people from all over the country that have been in this fight or want to get involved. So thank you both for being here and for all of the work that you're doing. The fight's not over.
No,
but
just beginning.
We appreciate you in the fight.
Thanks for having us.
You.
Thank you.